The issue of friends is crucial in a man's life. Friends are one of the most important things in your life because friends help you get through life. They help you understand life. They help you get through the loneliness of being alive, because being alive truly is a lonely experience. And friends are invaluable. But the thing is, see, who your friends are is kind of crucial. In point of fact, having the wrong friends can derail your life, can ruin your life. You want to be very, very careful as to whom you pick to be your friend. And I'll tell you right now, it's better to be alone than in bad company. There's a saying in just about every country, in every language rather, saying that goes along the lines of, tell me who your friends are and I'll tell you who you are. In just about every language, there is a similar saying. And it's very, very true. Your friends influence who you are. Often they can determine who you are. And a lot of people who are watching this now are going to say, oh no, that's bullshit. You know, I'm totally independent. You know, my friends don't control my actions. My friends don't determine who I am. Bullshit. Bullshit. Your friends determine your interests. Your friends determine your behavior, your words, your actions, the things you pursue as a career. They are far more determinant than you want to acknowledge. Because we all want to have this illusion that we are independent beings, that we are independent men, our own men, and that nobody influences what we do. But that's just simply not true. Our friends influence us. Now, of course, when you're a little child, when you're a 6 or 8-year-old boy, it doesn't matter, you know, who your friends are. Yeah, because you have very little autonomy in your life. The problem becomes when you start to gain autonomy. Now, what's happened in the West, in the Western democracies, is that parents of adolescents have rescinded their responsibilities insofar as their children, and they have rescinded their responsibility to police their children's friends. Now, this is, of course, a huge mistake in Western civilization. And most young men recognize it, especially when they are older and have gained some experience. They say to themselves, why didn't my parents, you know, tell me not to hang out with this kid or that kid who is just a bad influence on me? You know, but it's the fashion. The fashion is that children, adolescents, 13, 15-year-old boys who don't know shit about anything, that they should be determining who their friends are. No, 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 no. It's a mistake, but spilt milk, water under the bridge. Let's focus on your situation. Your situation is that, you know, you're a teenager, you're a 20-something, maybe even in your 30s. And you have a group of friends, right? Now, you see, your group of friends influences you for good and ill. Now, what you want to be doing is picking friends and making friends with people who can help you. Now, I'm not saying in a selfish way of people who can help you, like using people. No, 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 no. See, what I'm saying is that there are some people, some friends, who pull you back, pull you down. They subtly kick you in the shins. How many times have you known some guy, great guy, cool, you know, fun to hang out with, great dude, great with girls, you know, lots of fun. But you say, oh, you know, I'm planning on doing this, you know, trying to get this job or trying to do this business. And the guy's like, oh, you know, I don't know, that looks real tough. I don't know, I wouldn't do it. And he sort of like, it takes the wind out of your sails. Just by his demeanor, just by a subtle feel, a subtle vibe, he's like, nah, you know, I don't think that's gonna work out. And so like, it totally kills your vibe. It totally kills the energy and enthusiasm you had for something, right? How many times have you met such a guy? Lots of times, I bet, right? They are more common than not. Such people, those people who will pull you down, your friends, quote unquote. See, they're great to hang out with. They're great to, you know, have a beer with. They're great to, you know, be your wingman while you go out and chase girls. But even when you're chasing girls, they're going to say, oh, you know, that hottie, no, I don't think that, you know, you're in her league. You know those guys, right? You got to avoid them like the fucking plague, okay? No matter how cool they might be, no matter how friendly or popular or anything, those guys who bring you down, you got to cut them off. Leave them behind your rear view mirror. You do not want such people as your friends, okay? On the contrary, you want those guys who like nudge you and say, look at that girl, that fucking 10, I bet you can nail her, That's the kind of guy you want. The guy who eggs you on. The guy who encourages you to push your limits. That's the kind of friend you want to have. And sometimes those guys, they're not the coolest. Sometimes they're not like, they're not cool, and maybe they themselves are not particularly popular. But those guys who egg you on to greater and better things, those are the guys you want to be cultivating as your friends. Like I say, you become who you hang out with. You become your friends. So you want to look at people, at other guys, at possible friends, and look at them and say to yourself, would I like to be like this guy? Would this guy help me to become a better man? That's the kind of guy you want to hang out with. You have to ignore the superficial elements that make a guy interesting, attractive, cool, what have you. And when I say interesting or attractive, I don't mean in a sexual way. I mean in a fraternal way. You have to ignore that and think to yourself, can this guy help me be a better man? Again, I'm not talking in a utilitarian sense, in a sense of using somebody. No. And I am deeply opposed to you cultivating friendships with people you are using for your business or what have you. And it's all good and fine to be friendly with a business partner, friendly with people you work with. To be friendly, sure. Friends, that's different. And in point of fact, it's smarter to have your friends be outside of your work. Be independent of your work. Because apart from the fact that if you are friends with people you work with, you might wind up in a situation where you're competing with them. Friends who are not in your work will be able to give you a good vision of it. Do you know why guys talk to one another so much about movies that you like and albums that you like and different things that you like, and you contrast and compare and argue about it? And sometimes you listen to your friends' arguments and you're like, yeah, you might be right. Do you know why that is? It's not because you're supposed to care about those issues. It's because later, when things come up in your life and you're neck deep in the middle of something, you will be able to turn to this friend that you argued about books and music and movies and what have you. You'll be able to turn to this friend and you'll be able to ask for their judgment. Their unbiased judgment, and that is something supremely valuable that you want to cultivate. That's why you want to compare notes on books and movies and music and whatever, politics, this, that, the other. You always want to be doing that with friends so that you can get a sense of their point of view, so that later you can use them. Again, I don't mean this in a utilitarian sense. I'm using it in a sense of like asking your friend for help. Because that's what we do with our friends. We ask them for help. And we, of course, have to be willing to help our friends. We always have to be willing to help our friends. Now, to what extent should you help a friend? To what extent should a friend help you? That's a hard question to answer. Because, see, sometimes your friend is going to make demands on you that are pretty damn big. You have to ask yourself two questions. Has he earned it in the past? And if I help him now, will this help him so much? Or help our relationship? Will it break our relationship? You see? You have to make that calculation. I mean, if the guy is saying, oh, can you spot me $50 for, whatever. Oh, sure, no big deal. I mean, if he's a close friend, you've known him for like 10 years, and he asks you for $50, sure. If he always asks you for $50 every fucking week, I mean, he's a fucking moocher. Why do you have him in your life? You see the difference? See? Or if he asks you for $500,000 and you're like, what? And he's like, oh yeah, I've got this business thing, I really, really need it. No, you got to draw the line. See? No matter how much it hurts. Because that's another thing. And this is the same, as I've said, with your relationships with women, with your relationships with friends. You have to be willing to cut it off if your friend crosses the line. If a friend betrays you, cut him off. No second chances. Now, what do I mean by a betrayal? I can't define a betrayal. It'll depend on the given situation. But if your friend betrays you, and you will know if he betrayed you, I mean, if he fucks your woman, or he screws you out of money in some deal or something like that, if he betrays you, you cut him off. And that's it. You just leave him behind and you forget about him. Of course, you're going to cry. A lot of times, I have differences of opinion or problems I've had with friends have affected me more deeply than problems with women. And that's perfectly normal and perfectly natural and perfectly healthy. But, son, you got to keep in mind, if your friend is fucking you over, if he is betraying you, if he is doing something that he knows is wrong, you got to cut him off. If he does something by accident, well, it's an accident, of course, you don't cut him off. But if the guy deliberately makes a move against you, if he knows that something's important to you. Let me give you an example. There was this good friend of mine called Paul. I might have mentioned him before. I probably have. Oh yeah, I mentioned him before. Well, I'll just mention him again briefly. See, Paul was a friend of mine since I was 15 years old. And I nursed him through a lot of problems. Through his divorce, through different problems. He was very successful at work. And one day, I had a situation, and I needed really good advice. Good advice, and I also needed him to put me in contact with some people that he knew, some business people. It wouldn't have cost him much, and he knew that I had my shit more or less together, but I needed his help. And when the moment came, he just didn't return my calls, and he just sort of ghosted on me for a while. And then when my situation improved, he called me back up, like a long lost friend. Hey, how's it going? Blah, blah, blah. I told him, look, we're done. I cut him off. Because see, I'd realized that over the years, he was only there when things were good, when we were all in the champagne room. When things were tough, he was always just not around. When he had problems, he would call on me, call on some other people, people that we, a little group that we known each other since we were kids, right? But when things got tough, he was never around. When things are tough for us, when things got tough for me, I needed his help. I needed good advice, and I needed him to put me in touch with a couple of people who were very crucial to my business at that time. People whom he knew well, and that he could put in a good word for me and help me out of the situation that I was in. I wasn't asking him for money. I wasn't asking for anything that would make his life difficult. And he knew me enough to know that I wasn't going to make a fool of myself if I got in touch with these other people. It was perfectly reasonable for me to be in touch with these other people. He knew that I needed his help, and when I asked for his help, so I cut him off. And that's what you should do. When you discover a friend is just betraying you, or a friend is not really your friend, he's not going to sacrifice anything or even give you help and assistance when you need it, and it is easy and doesn't cost him anything. Such friends are not your friends, and you got to cut them off. Look, I'm realizing as I'm doing this video that this is the first approach to this problem, and I'm going to be doing a lot more videos on friendships, because friendships are a key issue, and they're not spoken enough. I don't think I've done many videos on friendship or mentioned friendship. I don't recall offhand, but my point, friendships between, first of all, always remember, there's no such thing as friendship between men and women. The sex thing always gets in the way. Anybody who says differently just doesn't know what the fuck they're talking about, okay? I'm talking about friendships with men, non-homosexual men, of course, okay? Now, I don't think that I haven't done a lot of videos on friendship. I'm sure that there are lots of videos, but I'm realizing now as I'm doing that this is going to be the first of several videos on this particular topic, because it's really an important topic. Because I look back at my own friendships, and to finish this video off, when I was a kid, when I was like 13, 15, I had a group of friends. We were like a hard group of like 5 and like an extended group of about a dozen. Right? And it was a really interesting group because we were like just past puberty. We were 13, 14, and we were all more or less the same. We were big into music. We were all, studying a musical instrument. We were all into esoteric music. We were all into reading a lot, reading novels, nonfiction, everything. and we were all into drugs. Okay, it was this weird combination. Oh, and D&D, advanced D&D. We were all into that. I remember advanced D&D appealed to my meticulous nature. It was just so complicated, and I just loved it. I loved all the rules and all the rest of it. Anyway, that's not important. My point. It was this big group, and we had all coalesced around this D&D campaign that we were running. And we were interested in these different things: drugs, music, reading, D&D. And what happened was that, see, we influenced each other radically. We swapped books, we swapped drugs, we swapped licks and techniques on guitar and what have you. And what happened to this group, it was really interesting. It started all together, but then it sort of like broke apart. You know, the guys who were like more cool, they started drifting more towards music and drugs. And the guys who were sort of dweebier, they started drifting towards more reading, less drugs, you know. And I, by pure chance, started drifting more towards the dweebier crowd. Excuse me. I started drifting towards this dweebier crowd, this dweebier set. And it was by sheer chance, because I went to see some friends of mine. I was late, and we were going to do drugs. And I got to his house, and they weren't there. It turned out later, and this was obviously before cell phones, that they had gone to some other guy's house. And so by chance, I ran into another guy, a guy called John, who was the super dweeb. And we wound up spending the whole day together, you know, just reading and talking. I mean, we would hang out together, read books, and then talk about what we've been reading and read some more. It was just dweeb city, right? The guys who were into drugs and music, the guys that I failed to hook up with, they started getting into heroin, you know, by high school. And by 20, their lives are a fucking mess, a fucking disaster, right? Whereas the dweebier guys, they all went to good colleges. They all turned out fine. See? It was by sheer luck that happened to me. That, you know, one day in 1981, wait, it must have been like around January of 82, that day happened, just before my 14th birthday. By sheer chance, I went to see one group of guys, and I wound up hooking up with some other guys, and my life took a totally different direction. And that was because of the friends I had. So, I'll talk more about friends at a later opportunity, but this is like a first approach. So pay attention to this issue.